90% of my revenues in the last 3 years is all because of my content creation. Not necessarily, and I want to make sure I get this out because I think it's valuable, is it doesn't happen because I shoot a video and then somebody DMs me. That's not how that works, or how this works. And some people, maybe they get that. I don't get that. The way that this works is that it solidifies relationships.
You're listening to The Azreia Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from Azreia, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Welcome, great state of Arizona and the Western Seaboard. I am your host, Marcus Maloney of This is the Azreia Show. And then we have our very, very, very special executive director, Mike Del Preet, with us on today.
Thank you. I like that extra very, appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We always want to show love and give love where love is due, right? So on today, we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk global, right? We're always talking national or super hyper local, but we want to talk with a very astute entrepreneur who hails from Toronto, Canada. His name is Jazz Tankar, and Jazz is a brokerage owner. He's a real estate professional. He does quite a bit with sales, and then also he holds groups similar to Azreia. So we want to talk to him a little bit today and talk to him about sales and talk about his entrepreneurial drive and spirit, because everybody needs that in order to be successful when you're being an entrepreneur. So Jazz, man, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm amazing, Marcus. Thank you, man. You're probably one of the first people after doing, in the last 12 months alone, I'm probably coming up to like 200 episodes that I've been on other people's podcasts that pronounce my last name like as good as my father or mother would say it. So congratulations. And thank you for that. Because usually I get a Takar, which I'm like, I don't really care what you call me as long as you call me.
Right.
But you said it, Takar. So big shout out to you. And I'm very, 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 I'll add an extra very as well, excited to bring a lot of value to your viewers and listeners. And hopefully, out of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are going to be watching and listening to this at some point, we inspire one person. That's all I'm out to really do, because I know if we help someone take action, maybe in the future, they'll pay it forward and help someone else.
Love
There
it,
you
man.
go. There you go. So man, kind of give us your backstory, because again, as real estate professionals, we all have to start somewhere and everybody have that backstory. So what's your backstory? Share your backstory with us.
Yeah, look, man, not to bore your guys going all the way, because I'm 41 years old right now, coming up to 42. So I don't want to bore your guys with like every single year on the year kind of thing. But I'm born in Toronto, really the north part of Toronto. It's an area called Rexdale. It's one of those areas that you're always taught to put up your windows and lock your doors. There's not really a lot of good stuff going around, right? But I was uber blessed because of my father, mother, and my two older brothers. They kind of protected me from, like, physically protected me at times. If you ask my two older brothers, that's for sure. And having two older siblings is always a healthy reminder that you're closer to the bottom than you are to the top. And I'm sure anybody who has older siblings can attest to that, right? But my parents definitely kept me sheltered from that. And so even though I had a very tough time in the formal setting of school, I barely passed high school, but I always knew, and again, because of my parents, even though they only had a grade 4 and grade 8 education from India, taxi driver, my father, his whole life, mother being a factory worker her whole life, they always told me, like, don't worry, like, we know we're getting the calls from the principals and the teachers, but you're not really doing anything bad. You also, look, you're going to get punished for it. So they held me accountable as much as they could, but they always let me know that, hey, like, you're enough, man. Like, I wear, like, your viewers can't see it, but I wear a shirt every single day that says you are enough, because I want to put that messaging out to people that, look, even though it might feel like other people have a lot more than you you also have all these resources as well. You are good enough. You are pretty enough. You're handsome, or whatever it may be. You just gotta find all those clues that other successful people left for you and pick those up. And so the one thing that I was really good at though, and I actually like I enjoyed it, was meeting people, speaking with people. Your listeners are getting a taste of it now. Like sometimes I like the sound of my own voice. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be hard to wind me up and do a podcast episode. I had this since I was a kid though. Like at 6 years old, I was the kid putting up his hand, helping with the book sale and selling Christmas ornaments door to door. Not that we didn't even really celebrate Christmas, but for me, it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I get to go out. I get to meet people. At 12, game changed for me. I got a newspaper route and then I got paid for it. And my mind was blown. Like I was like, whoa, like I was doing this since I was 6, 7 years old. Now I get to get paid for it at 12. When you get, $50 at the end of the week, like you're rich. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You buy a lot of stuff with at the age of 12. And so I kind of just got hooked on that, like getting someone to say yes. And I'm very, very happy and blessed again that at the fact that I became numb to the nose. And so then I went on to sell shoes for like 3 years at a very high level, and not the Al Bundy type. So some of your older listeners, I get that. Right? I was actually helping marathon runners and sprinters. And so at the age of 16, I understood the importance of really knowing your product. Like till this day, I still know, like, depending on how you walk and the way that your arch comes in or goes up, what type of shoes you should be wearing. Got into the banking industry, learned like telephone skills, like just before online banking, it was telephone banking, calling people, like, when people call in and want to transfer money, I had to also try to upsell people into getting a line of credit, showing them the benefits of that, a mortgage. But that's where I really honed in on telephone skills. And then I went into car sales for 3 years, again at a very high level, selling Acura's. And then for the last 19 years, there was one industry that I felt like, oh, that's kind of at the top of the rung in the sales industry, meaning real estate, because it probably is like the biggest purchase that the average person's gonna make, and the commission's the highest. So I was like, I got to test this.
Absolutely.
Let's see if I can do this. That was at the age of 23. In that time period, I've been able to, not to impress your viewers or listeners, it's more to impress upon them where the data's coming from. So they're like, who the heck is this good looking Indian guy? And like, why is he saying all these things? I want to talk to them on where this is coming from. I've been able to propel my team of 64 real estate agents, 13 support staff to the top, 3 in all of Canada in real estate teams for the last decade. And so we figured out a way to bring value to people, educate them, and get enough awareness in person through events and stuff that we do, but also online, obviously, in the last 5 to 7 years. I have my own podcast, which brings me a lot of awareness. But again, man, like for me, it was always sales. It was really in my DNA, but the work ethic came from watching my father and mother grind, pinch pennies. That's kind of that work ethic came from.
Love it.
Perfect.
Going through your story, I grabbed a couple things. So you love sales, right? And you got it at an early age. So from the newspaper, you got door to door, face to face. You went to a shoe store, so you went retail, right? So that's a different, you're still face to face, but it's a different environment. It's not retail shoes. And then you went to the bank, so you had phone skills, and then you went to cars. So I can see how like all these different layers of skill set do you think that was like, because sometimes I always say I pinch myself for just the way life works out. Like, how did all these things add up to be here so perfectly? Like, do you feel the way, like, how did all that work? Was there a decision there or just kind of roll with the punches?
It's a great question, man, because I don't know if I've even thought about it consciously, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I always went with my gut. Like I just, in each of those stints that I spoke to you about, they weren't like 3 to 9, 10 months stints. They were like all minimum 2.5 years to 3 years. And it's funny because literally speaking, it was either 2.5 years or like right in that 3-year mark. And then I always got this like feeling in my stomach that was like, man, like I'm not challenged at as much. Like it's not like, I'm not springing out of bed as positively as I was when I got started, and I was doing it for a couple of years. And so then every single time I felt that, I didn't I didn't let that settle. Like I made a decision, and not knowing if it was the right one or not. The biggest one really to me came from the banking industry to car sales, because from shoe sales to the banking industry, I was getting paid. Like you get your check every 2 weeks. From car sales to real estate, I got the muscle. I already
Mm,
put the reps of being paid on commission. It was from the banking industry, and I left that at like 18, I believe. Yeah, like late 18s. And when I made that jump into car sales, because car sales is all commission, right? And so that was by far the toughest one. But I actually like, when I think about the fact of what you just went over, which is like, look, I did, door to door and then phone scale. I
Mhm.
always tell people that I train real estate agents now, and I talk about the fact, like, this is not something that I, read in a book. Not that there's anything,
Right.
I'm a big
Right.
believer reading books, listening to podcasts like this, watching video, like huge, like surround yourself around people that are doing what you want to do at a high level. Through osmosis, you're going to get better. You might not become top 1% of the 1%, but definitely you're going to get better. But like, I've had no other job, man. Like, I literally worked in the summer as a bus boy, and even that was meant to be because my eldest child, his name is Millen, and the name of the banquet hall it was Millen, because that's where my wife and I met. So to your point, like, there's always something,
Okay.
things
yeah,
happen
yeah.
for a reason, right? But like, sales is all I know. Like, I love this industry. I owe everything to this industry, way more than just the real estate industry, which has given me a lot through investing into real estate, the amount of people that I've helped create wealth in real estate here in Toronto and in Canada. But the sales industry, I think it is by far the best. Like, if someone's listening right now that has a 14, 15-year-old, I highly recommend you make them work in retail, not car sales right away or anything. Get them into a mall and working in a mall as quickly as possible, especially in today's day and age, because a lot of kids, not all, but a lot of kids spend time behind the screens, right? And sure, there's
Yep.
time, but man, when you work in retail and somebody comes to your store and they say hi or they don't, you got to figure out a way to get them to say hi.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so
Yep.
you can work those reps of feeling comfortable meeting with people, and then the people that you just work with, like, you build such a cool relationship. Selling shoes at 16, I got guys and gals that still buy real estate from me, like whatever that is, 30 years later,
Hmm.
20 years later, right? So you build some really cool relationships. But definitely, I believe that there's a reason things happen. I also believe that there's reasons that things don't happen, right? Like,
Hmm.
God, if you have faith and you believe in God or universe, the universe, God's delays are not God's denials, right? And sometimes you just gotta wait it out. And I
Yep.
think people just
Yep.
not patient enough.
That's true. Man, you said something that really drove a point home, Jazz, and this was early.
Marcus, I
We
just
was
said,
talking.
Marcus, sorry to cut you up, but I only said one thing there. No, I'm playing, buddy.
So a couple of things, and this was early on, right? And I'm gonna start with the first thing you said. You got to be numb to the nose, right? And in sales, so that may have went over the head of some people, but being numb to those no's is really, really important. So can you just kind of expound on that, what you meant by that, so the listeners can understand?
Yeah, look, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, you're a real estate investor. If you're going to do any one of those things, you're going to go into podcasting and become a content creator. You are going to hear some form of no's, and those come from different people and in different ways. And sometimes the no's are like literally just no, I don't want to work with you. No, you cannot get the mortgage. No, another way of hearing a no is like, well, you suck at this. Or why are you doing this? Why are you two doing a podcast? It's such a waste of time. You hear all these things, right? And so if you can't have the ability to shut that out, and that's the external ones. I haven't
Hmm.
even got to the real deadly
Right.
negativity of the 6 inches between the ears, right? Like your self-talk, right? And you got to be very careful about that self-talk, because the words you say to yourself will cast a spell. Like it's bad. Man. There's a reason it's
Yep.
called spelling. It's called spelling for a reason. You know what I mean? So you got to be very careful with what you're telling yourself and what you're allowing other people to say to you. And so over time, the more no's you hear, you hopefully, and where I think I'm at, I come to a place where it's just, oh, that means not yet.
Yep.
Like, just probably haven't given this person enough value. And in fact, maybe I didn't even ask what would be valuable to them, because what's valuable to Mike is not valuable to Marcus and vice versa. Right. And so one of the best ways to find out is just to ask, like, hey, Marcus,
Right.
I just want to get a better idea of what you're trying to accomplish long term. I'll show you how we might be able to help. And I emphasize the word might, Marcus, my prospect
Yep.
client, because I can't help everyone. But if it's a match, we'll move to the next step. But before all that, talk to me. What are you looking into accomplishing? That's just another way of saying, hey, like, how can I kind of bring you value? Right. And then our job as entrepreneurs, as investors as well, like, you got to find out how to bring value to a lender or a JV partner, or how to bring value to a property. And the best way to do that is just to ask up front. But once you can get to a place where you realize that the no's actually pay you, like, so when I make calls to clients or like now I'm on kind of a blitz on doing in-person speaking events to entrepreneurs and real estate agents specifically, and mortgage and loan officers, where, man, I'm hearing no's all the time that people don't want to hear me speak, like, for whatever reason. And I just have come to realize, oh, it's not yet. Like, they haven't seen something that has resonated with them, A, or B, maybe there's something that I got to go back to and change up. Right. And so sometimes even reaching out to the people that said no is a very effective strategy. Hey, man, like, I know you said no to that event. You said no to that, product or service. I'm just curious, just so I can get better. And you'll be surprised. A lot of people
Yep.
want to help other people. Not everybody does, but majority of people want to help people because it's selfish. And I don't mean that with the negative connotation that it comes with, because to help other people, you have to almost it's a selfish act because it makes you feel good. So when you ask somebody for help, they will actually tend to give you their opinion on that.
Yep.
A lot there. Not one thing, a lot there. But so my next thought is, so we're talking about sales, a couple things here as well, and all the different types of sales you've done. Where does like product knowledge come into all this? How'd that play a role?
Yeah, like, so for me, the first time that I caught on to it was shoe sales. And I'm just lucky that the store that I worked in, it's not like an international brand like the Foot Lockers or the Champs of the world. It's kind of known really in the Toronto area, but it prides itself as a lifestyle store. So one of those things being like for marathon runners and sprinters, like, it's a ski store and a skates and all that kind of stuff. But every department they bring in. So we used to have representatives from like every shift that you had, every single shift that you had, sorry, like 2 days a week, I apologize, of the week that you were working, they always brought in a representative from Nike, from Fix, from Adidas, whatever, to not only like just bring you the shoe. It was like, the shoe was made like this for these type of runners. And I just came to realize, like, holy crap, like, not only me, forget just me, but like our department in footwear compared to those other stores that I mentioned, we just knew way more than we probably needed to know as a 16-year-old about shoes and people's feet. But like, the competition wouldn't be able to stay up with us. It was just almost impossible because we knew so much. And then when I went into car sales, like, look, that's a bigger purchase price now, right? It's a bigger ticket where people are not coming in necessarily that day. Like, they do buy on the same day, but that's because they've also done their research. They're looking at the Acura, they're looking at the Lexus and the Beamer and the Mercedes. They're comparing them all. So you better know what you're talking about. And that one's interesting because I also was not the kid that grew up with like Lamborghini Countach posters in the back, like on my wall, or Ferrari stuff. Like, I was more into sports. And so I would see cool cars and they'd be neat, but I knew nothing about cars when I got into car sales. Like, I barely knew the difference between a 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder. But what I did is I went back to the mechanic. So while I was working, customers would come in and ask me questions, and I would say, Marcus, that's a great question, man. Like, I don't want to misinform you because I'm still learning. Like, I used to be upfront with people.
Yeah.
I don't have that answer for you, but I do know who does. Come with me. I used to take them back to the mechanic and say,
I know.
mechanic, dude, Marcus has a question about how the pistons work and all these kind of things. Can you go over that? That made the client feel a little bit more comfortable. Didn't close everybody I met. That would be naive to think that you will anyways in sales. But I built up more of a rapport. But while that was happening, I researched like crazy. I became a subscriber to Car and Driver, Motor Trend. I don't know if these are Canadian references, but I know Car and Driver is an American one.
Yeah.
And like every show that was on TV about cars, I went to other showrooms like my competitors on my day off and wanted to learn how they spoke about the car, what they talked about. And so when you get into sales, the product or service you have, you better like that product or service better than anyone else because you're enthusiastic. Here's what I've come to learn in the 29 years that I've been in the sales industry, that you actually don't even need to know the product better than anybody and everybody. You just better be enthusiastic about it more than everybody and anybody, because real selling is really just the transfer of emotion. There's
Yeah.
always been an influencer and an influencee in a conversation. And when I say influencer, I'm not talking about the social media type. Like, I'm talking about in a conversation. Someone's kind of
Right.
holding the conversation, someone's taking in the conversation. And if you're the one who's transferring a lot of the emotion, you could do that with your voice. You could do that with body language. You could do it with your hands. You could also do it with the amount of knowledge you have on your product or the service. You have a much higher probability of that person doing business with you. On the flip side, people ask like, oh, how did you get so good in sales? Like, what is the secret? I'm like, the truth is, man, other than like transferring of the emotion and being enthusiastic about it, I've never really sold anything I've never believed in. Right. So like, I till this day think Acura is one of the best cars. Now that might be a naive thought. I
Okay.
believe it. I believe
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to name a car and I'm going to believe it. And like I said, it could be completely naive. In my soul, I believe that.
I'll believe I'll believe if they bring back the legend.
Or bring back the Integra as well. Like, maybe that's not this one, but the legend was the car. I get it.
The
So
flagship.
I forget who had it in there. I think it was Jay-Z who first put it in like a music video or something.
Yep.
I'm trying
Yep.
to think. Yeah. And so like even the shoe store that I mentioned, that lifestyle store, sorry, it was called Sporting Life. I thought it was the best store in the world, man, because I just believed in the service. I believed in the people. And so I think you really need to sell, if you want to get into this industry, something that you actually like. Because other than that, then you're just going to start manipulating people. And look, I think, I think I can at times if I wanted to manipulate people, but I'm now smart enough. And I did that in my younger age, that 14, 13 kind of.
Mhm.
But I'm lucky because I learned pretty quickly that you won't have longevity, right? And if you want the business to start coming to you, one of the ways is just take care of the customers that you already have, because on average they know about 200 people. So even if you only know 200 people, which I know 200 people, you're just not thinking about it. I open up people's phone book, they got an average of 200 names in there. So if 200 people that know 200 people that know 200 people, your network's like 40,000 people, right? And so if you just take care of the ones, you get a much higher probability of them introducing you to their friends, family, and colleagues.
Yeah, man, that's the first thing. Like when we get new investors in town or whatever, people looking to raise money or just buy a house, an unwanted house. I'm just like, yo, yeah, 200, probably more than 200, man. Or just sitting in your phone, out of sight, out of mind, man. Just pick up and say hi. Let them know what you're doing, man. Like it's right there.
Yeah, and you put up the device, you put up the phone into the screen, and I think we're also very lucky that we can do so much with that device, right? Like I do everything on my phone. Like right now, I shoot all my content. I don't even have a laptop. I do everything from my phone, and I tell that to everyone, especially the investors in the world, because they're like, sometimes they'll be like, well, why do I need social media? Look, if you're going to start thinking about raising capital or even doing joint ventures, but if somebody can't find you in the online world, You're not going to think you're a scam artist or anything of that sort. Like, it's just, you're out of sight. You're out of
Yeah.
mind. Like,
Yeah.
you have nobody's awareness. And so that device that you put up, brother, is the one that can help so many people get content out there. And that's why investors, they need to, like, other real estate investors should be doing what's happening right now with us three, because
Mhm.
you're going to get the awareness. You're going to send me this recording if you don't mind it, and I'm going to
Yeah.
push this out. Now my guys are going to get awareness of you. You know what I mean? And who knows, maybe in the next 6 months, somebody's going to reach out and say, man, I'm looking into investing in Arizona. And
Mhm.
Jazz, who are those two good looking guys that you had on that day? Put me in touch. I send the email, boom. That actually really happens.
Yeah.
That's not like a shot in the dark. That happens more than people think.
It does. It does. I mean, one of the main things that you're talking about, Jared, is just sales with a service perspective, right? Not really focusing on the sale, but how can I provide service to this individual that's on the other end of this conversation? And I provide that service by being astute about the product that I'm selling, knowing how it can solve their problem. And just by doing that, it brings forth awareness to the product. And then they congratulate you by purchasing the item and you gaining a commission. So it all works in a cycle, right? Where your awareness of the product that you're selling will then in turn award you a commission because you're providing a service to the buyer. So people need to understand that and need to really focus on that. So let me ask you this, how do you train newer real estate investors, agents on having that service perspective when they're looking at doing deals?
Very, like, for me, it's actually boils down to one thing, which is lead with education. See, when you're working with like a client or a prospect, a possible JV partner, a private lender, even like your traditional lenders as well, like the banks and stuff like that.
Mhm.
If you put out content either through video, audio, written word, and it's from an educational perspective, it's a lot easier to work with somebody that's educated already. It just makes the process
Yep.
easy. If they also happen to see that you're the one who's doing the education, you automatically start to become the authority. I didn't say that you are the authority or you become the authority necessarily. You start to become the authority. And a lot of people who are watching this or listening to this right now are thinking, well, but Jazz, I'm not the authority. Like, I'm not the expert. I have news for you. You're actually in a better spot than maybe these two gentlemen, because these two guys here, including myself, we kind of been in the world for a while of investing into real estate. So we are not as curious, I believe, just by nature.
Mhm.
Here
Yep.
to somebody who's new in this world of investing and new in the world of sales. You by nature, because it's something new, you're curious. You have a bunch of questions and you're not sure how this works. I understand that you might think it might make you look dumb, but at the end of the day, it's the truth. You just are not as experienced as my two boys here. And so because of that, you're in a much better situation. And let me explain. Because if you just record conversations with the experts, you become the authority by association,
Yep.
right? And so for me, it's always been about leading with education. Now, the truth of the matter is, I either don't care about some of the things, even in real estate. Like, I've been a real estate broker for 19 years. My clients know this, so it's not like I'm saying something new. I could care less about the countertops. I could care less about the curb appeal. Like, I don't have that passion for real estate like that.
Mhm.
My passion for real estate comes from creating wealth, like buying property, holding it, some boring stuff, obviously,
Right. Mhm.
financing the property, building out a portfolio. That's my world, and I like helping people do that. But I still can have a conversation with a home inspector and talk about the three things that are the three biggest mistakes home buyers make when putting in an offer, and or not, like,
Mhm.
when looking for a multiplex, in terms of the termite inspection or so on and so forth. There's so many
Right.
type topics. And so I think it's a lot easier to lead with education. So then the person that you're hopefully trying to do business with can make a quality informed decision themselves. And chances are they're always going to come back to the source that gave them the education. Not all the time, but chances are they'll come back to the source. In fact, here in the greater Toronto area, about 10, 12 years ago, I wrote a book. Like, it's a very basic book. It's like grade 8 reading, really. But it talks about how to buy your own home, how to sell your own home, and how to invest on your own. I know in my country of Canada, only 2% of people do. The statistics in the States, like 10% of people buy on their own. That leaves me 90% of people as a real estate broker that actually always, when they transact, they use a real estate agent. But I came out free, I give the book out for free. It's like my business card. I don't even have a business card. I don't sell the book, I give it out for free. I've handed out 10,000 copies. Guys, I think maybe 50 people have read the book. Nobody reads a book from front to back anyway, right? But when they touch the book, they're like, oh, like you wrote this? I'm like, yeah, like my team and I put this together. And automatically they're like, okay, this has differentiated me now. Doesn't make me like the best real estate agent in the world. Doesn't get me 100% closing, but it at least differentiates me from the 1.2 million real estate agents in the States and in Canada. I think it's like 1.2, 1.3 million real estate agents.
I have a question. Like, what is it like about the book still, right? Because with such transformation in our world from going from physical to digital, that writing a book, and even though it's getting even easier to write a book, right? Like these days,
ChatGPT.
yeah, like what is it about that physical book today that still just makes you
Tangible. It's still tangible.
Yup.
Like they can touch it, see it, smell it. You know what I mean? That's not the book, but they can actually hold it in their hands. They actually see like, oh wow, on the back of the book it says Jazz Tackor on it. You know what I mean? And then when they open it, there's actually words and not that many pictures. Even though I like a lot of books with pictures in them. But yeah, I think that's what it is. Like I think it comes down to the fact that they can actually hold it in their hands.
So going into the social media world, you said a couple things. And, obviously I follow you, so I know some stuff. Like in the beginning, you said, "Hey, I'm on a blitz to do 200 podcasts," and then you said, I think saying one of your social media posts, you said something about 15 or 20 posts per day. If I heard that right. So can you elaborate? Like some people are probably like they're even scared to put the video in front of their face, the camera.
Yeah. So was I.
Talk
Yeah.
about that. You way
Well,
want.
look, yeah. So at the start, when I started putting out content, first and foremost, the person that you're watching or listening to right now, like you might be like, this guy's on some type of crack or some drug or something. Like, where does all the energy come from? Or it might just be like, I hate this guy. Whatever it is, I was always worried about that at the start. When I got started with like consistent content creation about 4 years ago, 3.5 to 4 years ago, I had so many insecurities that held me back. I still have insecurities. And I'm here to say that anybody who tells you that they don't, I would probably just run away from that person because they're full of shit. Everybody has insecurities. Some are just better at hiding them. But at those insecurities for me held me back. Like I was so concerned, especially from a video perspective, because like I sometimes as a kid, I've had like a little bit of a lazy eye. I have a stutter sometimes because my brain, I feel, is moving faster than my lips are. But I'm passionate about what I'm speaking about. Like if you told me to come here and speak about religion or science or how to spell stuff, we wouldn't be doing this podcast because that's not my expertise. I wouldn't have any passion behind it, right? But I was very concerned about where I'm born, like where I'm raised in that north part of Toronto. We had kind of have our own like language or slang to it, and I was like, shit, like I got 52-year-old like people in downtown Toronto who work in the ivory towers. They invest a couple $100,000 with me in a year, like buying properties. They're going to start to hear that stuff because the more that I talk, they're going to hear, I'm going to do this. What happened is I had a partner of mine who's a mentor and an older brother to me. He tragically passed away and he was kind of the face of our company. And so it left a massive gaping hole. And so I got like pushed into it. So I really didn't have a choice or the business was going to fail. Like if nobody was going to speak to our clients in terms of on stages and at events or online, we were going to like just be out of business. It wasn't because they were
Right.
with us, period. There's going to be no awareness. So I got pushed into it. And once I started doing it, to bring this kind of answer to full circle, work, I was like, wow, I would call people and they're like, dude, that we saw that video, we saw that we heard that podcast. Like, wow, that guest that you brought on, it was so educational. Like, wow, jazz this and jazz that. And I was like, holy shit, this stuff works. And I was like, hey, what time did you watch that video? Like, I only see 14 views on the video. You obviously one of them. And they're like, oh no, I saw that last night. But it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. My wife and I were watching it. We're ready to invest. And I was like, oh damn, we're on to something. Okay. Because as a sales guy, just really quickly, as a sales guy, I've always worked uphill to build that authority and build that credibility is the word I'm looking for, and build that rapport. Like when you're meeting with somebody for an hour in your first sales consultation or in a meeting, like 30 minutes of it is just you trying to build credibility.
Yeah.
Like I've done this and all that. This somebody called me, or when I called them, they're already wanting to speak to me. And they're like, let's cut through all the shit. We're ready to go. And my head is blown. I'm like, holy crap, for 26 years, I've never had this. Like somebody's answered the phone and like they're, not that I have people who hang up on me and I never really had, but they actually want to talk. And then I was like, well, there's only one answer now. We have to do more. Like,
Yeah.
let's
They
take
already know you.
all our money. Literally, it's what I did. I said, all our money, put it into content creation. And at that time, I was myself, my current business partner in one organization, another business partner in another organization I have. I have a real estate company and a realtor training company, and I have business partners in both. And they both kind of were like, ugh, this is kind of risky. And I was like, look, I think it's worth the try. I have no idea if 1,000% this is going to work, but I've never had this interaction with a client before where they thought I was someone special and they because of the content, and boom, I hired videographer, editor, graphic designer, copywriter. I just went crazy. Boom, got a team of 10 people. And now we make sure that we put out at least 10 to 15 pieces of content a day on all the platforms. Some days we do more on one platform or less, but the ticket that I found the shortcut that I found, and I learned this from somebody else, and I'll tell you who it is. And so everybody can do this. Anybody can. You just need to have a strong enough why. My hack was doing long form conversations like this. So it's why, like I innately said, as if you don't mind, give me the recording. Because when I get this recording, I'm going to snip a bunch of little clips out of it. I'll turn this into a blog. I'll do a bunch of images. I'll also get new topic ideas like, damn, Marcus asked me a great question, but I answered it like this. But I also have a different story. Let me do a video one now, right? And so for me, I learned this whole content model from Gary Vee. I watched him doing it for I saw him at 700,000 followers. He's upwards like 10, 11 million. But then I was lucky enough to have him on my podcast. I flew to New York. I did a podcast for 30 minutes with him and it was good. It was all done. And then he just in passing was like, hey, like if you want to walk around and chill out here for a bit, like make yourself at home. I was like, sorry, what'd you say, bro? He's like, yeah, just make yourself at home. I was like, shit, I don't think I'm from Rexdale, like this north part of Toronto. Like I'm going to make myself at home. For real. I stayed there for 8 hours. I stayed there for 8 hours, chit-chatting with anybody I could chit-chat with. His team is sick. They're amazing, amazing people. I don't know who's there or who's not there, but they were so giving. And they gave me this, they kind of drew out what they do from a long form piece of content. And I was like, game over. I came back to Toronto that next morning. I started hiring people right away. And it's been 3 years. It's 80% of my revenues in the last 3 years is all because of my content creation. Not necessarily, and I want to make sure I get this out because I think it's valuable, is it doesn't happen because I shoot a video and then somebody DMs me. That's not how that works or how this works. And some people, maybe they get that. I don't get that. The way that this works is that it solidifies relationships I already have because they know that I'm on content. They hear me, they see me. And because of that, now more people kind of want to get with me in terms of like, hey, like, can I get with your training company? Can I invest? Can I buy a home? Because my 64 agents, we help people with traditional real estate, buying their first condo and all that. 80% of my revenues is all because of my content.
Awesome, man.
Key.
Well,
Very,
we're
very
wrapping up on our
important.
time, man. A lot there. I think we can keep talking all day about this. How do we find you,
And,
man?
hey, I tend to go off on tangents and stuff, so hopefully,
No,
hopefully it
man.
wants some value.
All good,
No, that's
man.
passion. That's
Yeah,
passion.
yeah.
So,
How do we
like
get
Mike said, speaking of content, how do we get a hold of you? How do we follow you?
I
Jazz?
I appreciate it, man. Look, I'm not that hard to find. Just Google my name and you decide how you want to consume my content from a video perspective. Go check out the YouTube page, Instagram, all that. Like, I'm not that hard to find. I'll let your guys find me.
Yeah, we'll put it
Okay,
in.
perfect. Yep,
Awesome.
we'll have all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Jazz. You definitely provided a lot of value to our listeners. And for one, you guys that are listening, you got to get out there and you have to market yourself and you have to lead with a service perspective. So if you're looking at doing some video content, think of how can I provide service to my followers, to my listeners, and then you'll definitely be successful. So one of the things that we're going to ask you to do is continue to follow us, the Azreia Show podcast. We air every Monday morning at 8 a.m. And then if you want to be with us in person, remember, the second Monday of every month is a monthly meeting, venue 8600. That's 8600 East Anderson Avenue, Scottsdale, Arizona. We would love to be with you, love to have you. Doors open promptly at 5:45. Come network, be with us. There's over 200 investors all in one place. So if you're new, you're looking for cash buyers, you need to be there. If you're a realtor looking for clients, you need to be there. If you're a investor looking for deals, you need to be there. You just need to be in the place. So thank you again, Jazz, man, for being there. Give us your social media handle again one more time. Give us your IG. Real quick.
ID is JazzTakhar13, JASTAKHAR, and the number 13. It's my lucky number.
All right, guys, you know what to do. Let's go and blow up Jazz's timeline. Let's go and follow him, meet him where he is. And remember, always enjoy the journey. Thank you for being here once again.
Thanks for listening to the Azreia Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Delprete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to Azreia.org and learn more about our community.